Trump is putting money in my pocket and screwing you over. The American brain drain problem is going to hurt all of us more than anyone realizes. And I am running away from my problems, but that's a good thing. We're talking about all of that and even more on today's brand new From the Bastards, the part of the show where I answer questions about news, politics, business, life, yours or mine, and whatever else is on your mind. And to submit a question, just go to defrancomedia.com. But that said, let's just jump into it.
Hey, Phil. I'm curious to see how different presidents or different political parties affect your own personal business. Do you get maybe more money when there's a president like Trump in office and you end up making more videos? Or how does it affect your business in general?
So TJ, thank you for the question. Very interesting for me because it actually affects me in different ways for different businesses. Right, so I have a clothing company, Beautiful Bastard, and that's been kind of shaken up since Donald Trump became president. His international tariff tango has been a fun thing to navigate, right? Not knowing if a certain shipment from a certain manufacturer is going to be what I actually paid, or hey, it might be 160% more once it actually gets to the United States. But then, as far as with the news show, more views come in and thus usually more dollars. I don't know to what degree that's true. Those, they usually do follow. But something I've always said, I've said it in different areas of the last 12 years is I would rather have a show that struggles to get views or attention if the world felt like a safer, less chaotic, less horrible place. And I truly think that the horrible that I'm thinking about, that's not even going to be fully seen and felt for another 2.5, 3.5 years. Whether that be because of things that are in Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill finally actually taking effect and having an impact on even a good number of his voters, as well as, whatever the hell the sense of normal is at that point. I mean, we're only like 6 or 7 months in to Trump's term. And even that, it doesn't take into account things like, okay, what's going to happen when Jerome Powell gets replaced? What's going to happen to the value of the dollar? What's that going to do to buying habits? Do buying habits then, the answer is yes. If they're bad, do they affect advertisers and how much they're sponsoring shows like that are on the internet? Oh my God, does that mean all of a sudden that there's less dollars? And so as far as how it's going to impact the business 1 to 4 years from now, that remains to be seen. And that's where kind of the biggest question marks are. But a big thing this brings me back around to, and it's something that I have, Trump supporting in-laws and people around me. I am definitely in a more diverse area as far as, who supports who now. But my big thing, especially when, someone will stumble across my videos and be like, oh, this guy suffers from Trump derangement syndrome. And it's like me just like saying what Trump tweeted. What I say is like, Donald Trump, he's for me. Well, he probably would not be a fan of my show. He loves rich dudes. That's what the big, beautiful bill in part says. Trump, this year, I have a call with my accountant soon, but very likely going to save my rich ass tens of thousands of dollars minimum. But as we've talked about on the show, it's going to be to the detriment of millions of Americans, and largely the most vulnerable of Americans. It's horrifying to think of how many millions of Americans are going to lose their Medicaid. And that, once again, that's just one aspect of it. All while you have economists and experts saying like, this is going to blow up the budget, which once again, it turns into this question of, okay, how is it going to impact me and my business, 1 to 4+ years from now? While over the past 2 decades, I feel like I've busted my ass to get to this point, I also have to say, without social safety nets, and it could be something as simple as, paid lunch. Like I was a trailer park kid for a while. The state made sure I had food in my stomach at lunch when I went to a public school, which was also free for me. I see so much conversation and even legislation today that feels very much like we have to cut social safety nets because the people that don't have are somehow inherently lesser, when really it's like a lot about just opportunity. And I think that we need our governments to do as much as we can to make sure that 1, people get more opportunities, and 2, when life inevitably hits you, whether it be something like a car crash or an illness that you get or something like that, that doesn't just automatically ruin your life, whether it be because you didn't actually get the care that you needed, or it puts you in so much debt that it feels like you can never dig yourself out from it. You can say that I drank the Kool-Aid when I was growing up, but I am actually a big believer in American excellence. I believe there is just so much fucking untapped excellence and especially in our young men and women out there. But we've set everything up, and I say we royally, it's wasn't me. The game's been set so they can never fully get off the launch pad. And then actually, rather than doing something about it, politicians go like, who can we just fucking blame?
Hey, Philip, thank you for everything you do. I think a quick question a lot of us have is your journey on running and getting your mile time down. What was your time when you first started out? If you've said that, I'm sorry, I missed it. And what type of diet and exercise did you do to sort of help aid you along this journey? Were you pounding carbs and bananas before runs? Like, what were you doing, man? Good work. Very proud of you. Thanks again.
So AJ, thank you for the question. I think you're gonna set me off on a mini rant, and I feel like I kind of am saying this for everyone, but especially to like my 75% male audience. Most of you are between 19 and 44 years old. The majority is 25 to 34. You know, I always say you have value no matter what your size, your weight, whatever. But one, even if it's just to have a chapter of the story, I think every guy should see how fit they can get at one point in their life. But the main thing that I will stress to you is just start moving your body more right now. Moving your body and eating right, which becomes easier when you're moving your body more, it is the closest thing to a magic bullet for most of the shit that you feel is wrong in your life. I think better, I feel better physically, I feel better mentally, I better, I play with my kids better, I'm able to do more, people treat me nicer because we're part of a Luxus nation. I also feel like I treat people better because my mental health is just better, and it makes it easier to be the man that I want to be. It also, and this is just massively important when we have a male loneliness epidemic happening out there, and just a loneliness epidemic in general, but especially for men, it helps you find community, whether it be with run clubs, gyms, workout clubs, or just, you know, there being other people who are taking care of themselves. Also for the straight male guys out there, I'm not saying, you know, go fucking crazy, because, you know, a lot of people, they get into fitness and they start building their bodies for the male gaze, like how fucking huge can I get? And they get into like really scary steroid places. Very easily it can get into an unhealthy place because of the unrealistic body images that many fitness influencers put out there. But, you know, taking care of your health, it's gonna make meeting women easier, and it puts you in a more confident, healthier mental space. But the main things that I come back to constantly on this is, one, your mental health is gonna be so much better if you're active, and two, it's about ensuring your body can do things better and for longer. And so with that in mind, I'd bring it back to your initial core question. When I started, my mile time was nothing. But I didn't check my time. I would walk, and then eventually I'd jog for 30 seconds, and then walk for 2 minutes, and then, you know, 1 minute on, 1 minute off. And then I just kept doing that and doing that. And so one day I could do a jogging motion for 5 minutes, then eventually 10 minutes. And then eventually I felt like I was gonna die that day. I think I did maybe a mile, somewhere between 12 to 14 minutes. I don't remember the exact time. But also a big thing is, like, you do not need to immediately run. That can be so bad for your joints. So in addition, or, you know, on off days, I'd try to go for things like hikes. And in addition to getting fresh air and sunlight, which is, sun is such a game changer, like go out, get sun as early as you can. Just like, I'm not saying like lay out by the pool or something, but if it is available to you, like get 10 minutes of sunlight in the morning before, you know, everything, the day really starts. You know, those hikes, the steepness, it helped me kind of slowly build muscle and power. And then you can honestly do so much without a gym, right? Especially when you're a big person, like I do weighted lunges and squats now. When I was 100 pounds more, I was the weighted squat and weighted lunge. And also, you gotta fucking throw ego out of the window. Like your run or jog, it's gonna suck initially. If you can't do a regular push-up at first, get on your fucking knees. It's not a girl push-up, it's a modified push-up. It's a rung on the ladder to progress. Like, yeah, there are gonna be people who mock you, but the only people who are gonna mock you are fucking just worthless fuckheads. You are actively trying to better yourself, and some insecure fuckhead is gonna do something, and they don't even deserve your attention. And then as far as when it comes to food, I just keep it simple. When I was losing weight because I was very obese, I just made sure that I was eating in a caloric deficit. For a guy my age and my size, that's around 2,400 calories. And so now where I'm just doing maintenance, I try to average that, right? So sometimes I'm lower, sometimes I'm higher. As long as it evens out, great. And as far as the food, like this is gonna be boring as shit because getting healthier is boring as shit. Just trying to generally stick or average out to a certain area or things. You know, I snack throughout the day, but I've just tried to have healthier snacks. You know, I'll start the day with either an omelet in the morning with maybe hash browns or a bagel. I usually use egg beaters, spinach, some cheese, a bunch of veggies, maybe sometimes bacon, definitely a healthy dose of garlic and pepper. Or, you know, I'll just do a fuck ton of high protein yogurt with a ton of berries and granola. Then for lunch, I try to do a salad, usually with a lot of chicken. Maybe I'll throw in like a low carb wrap to make sure that I'm hitting fiber. And then, you know, I just listen to my body. If I'm hungry, I eat. And so for snacks, I'll have things like hummus and cucumbers, broccoli, carrots. And then as far as dinner, that's usually more of a wild card. I'm just kind of open to whatever at that point. I love a dinner. You know, my wife handles it. And so sometimes it's heavier, sometimes it's lighter. You know, I have a sweet tooth. So if it's heavier, I'll do like sugar-free ice pops, like 15 calories a pop. Or if it was on the lighter end, I'll probably do like a Yasso bar or 3. Do a peanut butter one, a fudge one, or just a classic vanilla one. And then as far as fitness, I try to make sure that I walk like 4 to 5 miles a day. And then I work out, or I do weight training like 4 times a week, usually only on my tonal. But also like a good way to kind of kickstart something is if let's say you're gonna watch a TV show or do some bullshit, do or work your way towards doing 100 push-ups, crunches, and squats a day. So you can do them 5 at a time or 25 at a time. Just moving your body, introducing change to change. But also I'll say, going back to walking and running, it's a multitasker's dream. You can zen or vibe out with some music, you can listen to an audiobook, or even though I think it's best to look away from screens, you could do a lot of stuff on your phone. Or catch up with friends and family with text or FaceTimes, or do a little bit of work. Or like this morning, I listened through a bunch of y'all's questions. I game planned with the team to make this From the Bastards episode based off of last week's learnings. I listened to clips and podcasts of Brian Tyler Cohen because I have an interview with him in like about 2 hours. And then, I looked at some emails and I did some research for the show. But then tomorrow I'll probably just start listening to an hour of Onyx Storm. And then finally, to bring it back to running, I've just found that it's largely about just getting my miles in. And so I'm at the stage of running where I'm just kind of like learning and feeling out different paces. So I'll do like a 3-mile casual jog one day, then I'll do like near sprints for a minute and then walk after, and then I'll do kind of a slower long run day where I do like 6 to 10 miles. And for those long ones, I'm largely just trying to either get used to the suck or make it so that it does not suck anymore. Hello, Philip. This is Rafif from Bangladesh. I've been in academia for the last 2 years, and I've been thinking about going abroad, especially in the US, for seeking a PhD degree. But the current situation right now in the US with all the funding cut off, so the chance is very low for me to get a good university in the US, and I'll probably not end up going to your country. But I know that eventually these funding cuts are going to get lifted because of how your scientific society works. Otherwise, the USA will fall behind eventually, like within 5 or 10 years. So I think the funding will come back when the next president comes into the White House. But do you think within these 3 years that Trump is in office, will the culture shift enough for the US to stop being at the top of academia, like in the top spot in research, or will China take the spot? So Rafif, thank you for the question. It was a great question, so much so that even though your audio quality was kind of messed up, I was like, I gotta read this because I did want to talk about this. I will start off by saying whether internationally or domestically, especially with Democrats, I think people need to get past like it being a foregone conclusion that Trump or Republicans are not going to be in the White House 4 years from now, right? Whether it be for a number of reasons, legal, heavy-handed gerrymandering, maybe something not so much on the up and up, or, just good old-fashioned being able to control public sentiment, right? Really up in the culture war stuff to the point where people end up voting against their own interests. So that's the first thing. And then connected to that, I do think that we are going to have a really big research crisis in this country. Because to back it up a little bit, academia and research in the United States, they've taken some serious hits since Trump came back into office. And when we look at the current state of things and we look forward to what's going to happen next, I think it is very important to look at history. And while I'm not saying it's a one-to-one, I think it's very important to point out that there are parallels to the 1930s brain drain in Germany before and during World War II. Once Hitler was appointed German chancellor back in 1933, the government, they quickly targeted German universities for restructuring to make sure that they aligned with Nazi principles. And some of the new policies that included things like the law for the restoration of the professional civil service that was passed in April of 1933. And that ordered that anyone in a government position with at least one Jewish grandparent or political opponent of the Nazi party be immediately dismissed. And so just starting things off, that meant hundreds of academics lost their jobs at Germany's top universities. Universities that, it's very important to note, were some of the most elite in the world at the time. But as we saw there, and as we see just countless times in history, it never just stops there. Soon you had remaining professors and students also subject to the whim of the Nazi regime, right? Political loyalty being rewarded more than academic ability or achievement. And so one of the consequences was that just the quality of higher education in Germany, that suffered. And then thanks to the blatant targeting of research and academia along with everything else at the time, many established researchers chose to leave the country. It also obviously changed the situation for people that would otherwise flock to Germany, and in some cases, people were forced out. All of which became known as the World War II brain drain, or human capital flight, where you had this movement of highly skilled and highly educated workers in and out of their respective countries. And again, I am not saying this is one-to-one equivalent, but without a doubt, there are parallels with what the Trump administration is doing and how they're trying to reshape how the US approaches science, research, and academia. Right? There's been a tsunami of funding cuts to federal science programs. And in fact, you had the New York Times reporting that the National Science Foundation, which funds most of the scientific research at American universities, they're awarding new grants at the slowest pace in decades. You also have Trump using the government to essentially wage war on universities, not to mention the mass firings that have happened to government researchers at both the Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Education. And then, of course, there's the flood of executive orders aimed at reshaping how the U.S. approaches science generally. Right? And then you have the Trump administration's aggressive targeting of migrant students. And I could and then for ages. There's so many things, right? So you have all that and a million other factors, and it's led to established researchers along with budding scholars leaving for places like Canada, Europe, and even China. Right? In China specifically, they are making an active effort to attempt some researchers to them. And that, as we're seeing researchers and people like you, Rafif, reconsidering plans to come to the U.S. in response to everything that Trump's doing. And so I really do fear like America is no longer going to be that shining city on a hill. I genuinely think that we are setting things up for China to just fucking eat our lunch. And aside from just not knowing what the future has in store with us, especially in regards to elections and future administrations, I'll say it takes a lot longer to build than it does to tear down. But Rafif, the last thing I'll touch on is with actually a part of your audio that did come in clean.
And sorry about my broken English. This is my third language, actually.
I understand your feeling to apologize for that, but please never. I know one, and I barely speak it properly. But that, my friend, is where today's episode of From the Bastards is going to end. I hope you enjoyed getting filled in on Friday. If you like this new 6-video week schedule, definitely let us know. Hit us with a like. And hey, I'll see you right back here on Sunday with a very special guest. Stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and I'll see you then.